Thanks for watching our video. Before we move on to the fun stuff, go ahead and pause this video and take a look at our disclaimer.
Hello, and a warm welcome from Team NewDay Child Coaching. Today, we have the great pleasure of interviewing Miss Andreina Diaz, a PhD student currently focusing on screen time and children. Your hosts are myself, Rachel Lynn, speech language pathologist, Amanda Ray, occupational therapist, and Miss or Doctor
That's not necessary.
Dr. Michelle, Doctor of Physical Therapy. Andreina, and your dissertation topic is screen time effects in early childhood, focusing specifically on autistic traits.
Uh,
Wow.
it's a sensitive one, I know.
Definitely, definitely. And before we get started, something that we always like to do are just some general icebreaker questions. So something silly. What's the most ridiculous fact I can go first. The most ridiculous fact I know is that your brain stops seeing your nose in your visual field when you're looking out. So if it didn't,
Wow.
yeah, it's
For
always in your
all
visual
noses?
field. What's that?
For all noses?
My guess would be yes, but I don't know. My nose isn't that big, so maybe not Pinocchio. I don't know.
Oh man, I don't think I know so many random facts. Oh my
How
goodness.
about Amber or Amanda? Do you guys know of any facts?
Octopus has 3 hearts.
Oh, wow.
You learned that
Not
from
know that
Finding
either.
Dory.
There you have it. You got me.
Amber, any
Yeah.
from you?
The only one that I can think of off the top of my head is kind of personal. So I'm from Pennsylvania, if you can't tell. And there are, for where I'm from, the county I'm from, there are actually more cows than there are people.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's very rural.
Oh, actually, I have a random fact. Apparently, dolphins, like their waves that they do, help children with cerebral palsy.
Oh,
Oh,
Learned that from Instagram, so.
I'm gonna have to look into that one.
All right. Well, how about the second one? So, what was your favorite toy as a child, and do you still have it? And I can go first. My favorite toy as a child, I'm originally from Florida, and so Disney World was like the thing to do. And so Minnie Mouse was my favorite, and I had a little Minnie Mouse doll, and I would carry her around by her nose. And I don't know if I still have it. I'd have to ask my mom.
I actually still have mine. It's not Minnie Mouse, but it's this doll my mom gave me for Christmas, and it's just this like big pink plushie, kind of looks like those Precious Moments faces, and it's just this big pillow pink doll, and I still have it. It's just in storage waiting to get repaired because it's so used out. It's all raggedy.
How about you, Amanda?
Cabbage Patch doll. We have the doll theme
Wonderful.
going on here, but yep, I had a Cabbage Patch kid, and I don't think we still have it. My guess is no, but I don't know with 100% certainty.
Was it a bald one, or did it have like yellow or red or what?
Red, like red curly hair. Yeah.
That's so fun.
How about you, Amber?
Yeah, mine was a Beanie Baby Beagle. His name was Copper because my favorite movie growing up was Fox and the Hound. And yeah, we still have it. It's actually in my daughter's room.
Aw, that's
Oh, that's
cute.
awesome.
Sweet. Okay, and last icebreaker. What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? And I can go first. And the only one I can think of, well, it's not recent, but the only one that I could think of is jumping off in Queenstown. It was where they had the original bungee jumping in New
Mm.
Zealand. And so I was
Oh,
like, oh, okay, gotta do that. So it took me a while to actually take that step off the bridge, but yeah, that's the most adventurous thing I've ever done.
I have
and
always wanted
terrifying.
to do that. That looks so exciting. I mean, it's scary because I don't know, but I would love to try that. The most adventurous one for me, I would say it's either been skydiving or just riding a motorcycle in Miami because that is one of the craziest things to do as a young adult.
I will second that. In Miami, that's insane. That's crazy. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I would say so. I traveled to Peru once and we went into the Amazon and we did like an overnight kind of like backpacking trip into the Amazon and slept basically up on a platform overnight. And we did the hike in the night and then hiked back out the next morning. And during our night hike, it was really cool because we were looking at all these animals that come out and bugs and, lizards and frogs and all kinds of things, right? um, all kinds of the critters that come out at night. Well, we stumbled upon a bushmaster snake, which is a giant, very poisonous, like deadly poisonous snake, where if we were to have gotten bitten, we likely wouldn't have survived. And so that was probably the craziest thing I've ever done. But thankfully, our guide, kind of heard the rustling of the leaves and the snake like literally coiled and was positioned toward us. And so he kind of like pushed us back and we just watched and waited as it slowly turned around and like carried on its way. But what a crazy story, right?
Ugh.
I know. Yep. And then when we hiked back in the morning, there was like this is probably TMI, but there was like a giant dead carcass of I can't remember what it was, but it was like, a common animal out there. So there was something that had, attacked this animal like not too far from where we were. So there was that too. So we were like, okay, that was more than we bargained for.
That's scary.
Wild.
Wild. Yeah.
How about you, Amber?
You guys are so much more adventurous than I am. I'm a scaredy cat. We did a ton of hiking whenever we were in Europe, when we lived in Europe, and we loved the Dolomites in Italy. And so we did a 12.5 mile loop hike in Sucheta. And there was one portion of it where we gained, I can't even remember what the elevation was, but it was like an insane amount of elevation in the matter of like a football field or two. And it was so steep at one portion that we could literally like reach out and touch the ground in front of us without having to bend over. Um, and we did this as a family of three. And so my husband is in front of me with our 9-month-old in the backpack, and I am behind them, like making sure he doesn't fall and slide down the trail. It was quite a time.
It's
Wow.
definitely adventurous.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for sharing that. Those were fun. Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So, Andrina, tell us what brought you to your passion. Why is this topic so important to you right now?
So the passion part, what brought me to the passion is honestly, ever since I was younger and a teenager, I started working with special education as a teenager. And the more that I worked with special education kids, I started having a liking more towards the autistic children. And that's where my passion for special education began. I worked through my whole life with special ed, and the passion for screen time really happened when I saw someone in my close circle sort of change their personality once that child was introduced to screens. And much later on, within that close circle, diagnosed with autism. And there was always just like a thought in the back of my mind. I wonder if somehow screens had to do with that. And really, like how I just dove deep into this was when my son was born. He was born premature. He was born at 6 months pregnancy. The
Oh,
doctor,
wow.
yeah, the doctor used the words, not very good choice of words, but he said, "Be careful because your son might become autistic." And I said, "Become? I've worked in special education for so long. Autism's genetic. You're born autistic." And he was like, "Yeah, most people think that." And like some short, like he just kind of like was very short with me. And that was into that. But that stayed with me with it brought me back to that time where I was like, wait, I used to think there was a connection with screens and autism. And then as soon as I dove in, I was like, that's it. I need to get my PhD in this because there's so many connections that people just don't know about.
That's fascinating. So, obviously, the research lately has been really helping that theory, right? That it is genetic and Like that Princeton review came out to say that yes, their genetic is one component, but there's also other components that may play a key role. And I'm always curious too about environment, right? So environment can be screen time, it can be maternal stress or infant stress or prematurity, like all of these different things, not necessarily saying causing anything, but definitely contributing, right, to a child's early life and experiences.
I
Yeah. Rachel, do you mind if we backpedal for a minute? Because I know that you did mention the Princeton review that just recently came out, and we're recording this in July of 2025. So, does somebody want to go ahead and do like a quick little review of what that study covered and what the results were?
Yeah, so I actually really dove 16 pages of notes on this autism study that Princeton did. And what they did is they looked into the genetics of autism and they categorized what this whole spectrum has been that we've known our whole time. And they categorized it into four subtypes of autism. And what I thought was most interesting of the four subtypes is that three of those subtypes are genetic in the aspect that they occurred during pregnancy. But one of those subtypes is genetic aspects that happen after pregnancy and that they occurred during the time that the child's brain was developing in early childhood and when it's highly neuroplastic, which is in children 0 to 3 years old. And the one thing that stood out to me was what is it that most of our kids ages 0 to 3 years old are having right now? And that's screen time. And it's important for parents to know that because in that subtype, which the subtype that was genetics after pregnancy was the social and behavioral challenge subtype, which again, that is what we're seeing a lot of in these children who are, I say like the modern autism diagnosis, where children are socially distant or they have repetitive behaviors or they're just not able to pick up on those social cues. I feel like they're very easily getting diagnosed as autistic. And it it was just a shock to me because that category was the highest percentage of children in that category.
Like 34% or something, right? In
It was
that
37.
37%. Okay. Yeah, that's tremendous. And if we can pick that apart, what we know of when a child is watching a screen, they're not picking up on social cues because they're looking at a two-dimensional screen. They're not getting that back and forth. Their brain is not getting wired for that social intervention, those social cues, the eye contact, all the nuances, the vocal variations that people have when you're having a conversation. One of the things that I am so passionate about with screens is just informing parents, right? So I'm not blaming, I'm not judging. I just want to give information. And so another thing that we know is that when you're looking at a two-dimensional screen, your eyes are not getting the exercise they need to look at something near and far. They're only looking at, a screen on one, whatever it is. Hope, sometimes they're on tablets, right? So that's like 8 inches from their visual field. And so what are the deficits that are going to happen because a child's not able to wire their brain, for those near and far experiences, just even visually, you know? So it's just, so break it down a little bit more, Andreina. So now we know, right? So there's this one subcategory that 37% of the population or of the children that have been diagnosed with autism have been diagnosed post birth. Like, in other words, there's no genetic variant, I guess, in utero. Is that what they're saying? Or
So it's like there's mild genetic mutations in utero, but the the thought that they have is that the genetic mutations are, I don't want to say activated, but that's kind of the best way to put it, that those genetic mutations are getting activated after birth during that time of early infancy up until like that neuroplastic, which is up to 3 years old. So they're suggesting that the symptoms are coming from postnatal environmental experiences. And you said it earlier, a lot of times people don't realize screens are a part of the environment because I talk to parents and I say, oh, it's environmental. Instantly, they go to pollution or they go to an argument I hear all the time, but the vaccines, and they say, oh, well, that's environmental. But our vision is environmental, especially for children. Autistic children learn visually. Most of the autistic children learn visually. And if you already have a child who's sort of like predisposed to autism, and we're constantly giving this visual stimulation, it does make you wonder if it's possible that that is linked to the autism developing, because there's already more than enough studies showing a link between early screen time and autism diagnosis. In fact, children who get screen time before 2 years old, they're 4 times more likely to get diagnosed as autistic. And it just, I start piecing the dots and thinking about it. I'm like, maybe autism's like diabetes, where you have type 1, it's genetic, and you have type 2 that you're just susceptible to it. And based on the environment, you could develop diabetes or not. And I kind of think of this subtype 1 as that. Maybe it's, subtypes 2, 3, and 4 are completely genetic. And then we have subtype 1, which is genetic, but also environmental. Um, because yes, the other three subtypes, they had the rare but also strong genetic mutations.
That's
That's crazy.
Did you want me to explain each of them or no?
yeah, that's perfect. Please do.
The four subtypes that they had, the first one was the highest population, which we said was 37%. That was the social behavioral challenged. The second subtype they had was mixed autism spectrum disorder with developmental delay. And the children in that subtype, they had major delays in walking, speech, sleep, feeding. They also had cognitive impairments. They were diagnosed earlier, and a lot of their genetic mutations or their early mutations were inherited by parents. And for this subtype, it was believed to be before birth and just a short window of infancy, which typically is like the newborn stage if people think it's 0 to 3 months old. Then the third subtype that they had was the moderate challenge. So the moderate challenge, they had milder symptoms, they had the highest language ability, they are typically diagnosed the latest, and they walked on time. And I think of this is probably what would be called Asperger's back in the day. This is that moderate challenges type of subtype of autism, because their mutations in their genes were mutations that ideally, if they're mutated alone, they don't really cause any serious problem. But if there's multiple one of them, that's when you start to see the changes in the brain. And then the last subtype that they had was the broadly affected, which was the most severe type of autism, which it's the severe delays, it's the seizures, the OCD, anxiety, the children that you could see the signs of autism very, very early on in their babyhood.
Can you talk about, or do you happen to have any information about epigenetics? Because I have a limited understanding of it, but what I'm understanding from epigenetics is just that there are factors that will turn things on and off. And so I'm just curious about that and how that would apply to that subcategory of 37%, which you're thinking are the signs are showing that screen time could be one of those elements that are in the environment that might be turning on those DNA differences. Is that what?
Yeah, that's literally what I'm studying in the sense that the screen time impact on autism symptoms, because I hear it all the time where correlation does not equal causation, and just because it's linked doesn't mean that it's true. And what I always say back to that is until it is. Correlation is not causation until it is. We had correlation of asbestos, we had correlation of lithium and cocaine in children, and smoking equals cancer. And it was just a correlation for like 50 years until it became a causation. And I always advocate that just because this is a correlation now, we don't have to wait 50 years to find out. And with epigenetics, yes, it's how the environment, that I'm assuming that's the E, not sure, but it's how the environment interacts with your genetics. And the theory that I have is that, yes, possibly we are kind of activating or creating, well, activating the genes in a genetically predisposed autistic child, and we're activating these genes because in the brain, what's happening is as the child is experiencing their environment, they're getting to know the world, they do that through the five senses, taste, smell, see, hear, and touch. But if we're only activating the visual stimulation, then the brain, I explain it like a tree. The brain has these branches, and the more water you give to that tree, it's going to take it to the stronger branches. Once those strong branches are strong, they're going to keep on growing stronger. The weak branches, which did not get enough water, are going to fall off and die. And that's how neurons work in a child's brain. The ones that we're stimulating the most are the ones that are going to get the most nourishment. The rest of them that are the rest of them that are not being activated, they will fall off and die, or it'll be a harder time to regenerate them. And those kids that are visually stimulating often, and I like to say, or I kind of attribute it to the constant visual stimulation they have from videos, because that's what they're used to. So that's what their brain is always going to want to have. And in children who are autistic, and some of them are visual learners, what they're seeing on an iPad is unrealistic expectations of the real world. Like you said earlier, you mentioned something about the social skills, and I thought about this video I saw recently, or just in general, how the cartoons that kids see now. In real life, someone's not going to cry with exaggerated tears coming out of their face or a waterfall of tears. And if I'm angry, I'm not going to have steam coming out of my ears. But to a child who is predisposed to autism and they already have that visual learner style, I expect in the real world to see people's ears steaming when they're mad. So how do you expect me to understand that you're mad if I don't see steam coming out of your ears? I can't read those social cues because I learned that real social cues are what I see on my tablet
Our
and
That's
students
what
a
I see
really
in
good point.
realistic cartoons. Sorry, say that a minute.
Yeah. I said that's a really, really good point. I mean, they learn so much from what they watch on those screens. And then, if a kiddo doesn't have the cognitive ability to know that, like, hey, what I'm seeing on this screen isn't what I should expect from real life, then yeah, of course they're going to expect that, especially whenever we're talking about things like reading people's emotions based on facial expressions or vocal tone, and things like that. So that's a great point.
Well, I even want to take that a step further and say, I know for even myself, and you see it all the time in children. They see a movie, right? You've been introduced to a movie for 2 hours, when you used to go to the theater or whatever, and then you come out and you all of a sudden are Superman. I mean, there's been tons of children that have actually hurt themselves thinking, I can lift the car or I can, stop the stop something midair, and they hurt themselves because they can't do that. But that's something that their brains kind of got excited about because they were just immersed in it for 2 hours. So if you apply that even more, right, if that's something that they're doing all day, every day for hours and hours, then I could see how those lines get blurred even more so.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
another,
especially whenever they try to like merge that with movement, because the more that we're talking about this from the PT side of things and like the movement side of things, is I'm thinking about if a kiddo, especially who is 3 years and under, I mean, they're wired to move. Everything is a sensory and a motor experience for them. And so if they're sitting in front of a screen for hours, I mean, and this is like, I'm talking like 2+ hours a day, and it doesn't all have to be at one chunk, right? If they're sitting and they're immobile and they're sedentary for 20 minutes, and then they play for a couple of minutes, and then they sit and they're sedentary for 20 minutes, or if they are truly sitting and sedentary for 2 hours at a time, it's just like you were saying, Andreina, that those branches in the brain are going to die off because they're not being fed with that movement and that mobility. And so I'm wondering if on top of that, we're driving kiddos away from movement into a more sedentary lifestyle, and that's going to rocket it even further into more unhealthy habits as they age and whatnot.
and Amber,
Yeah.
that's a study that they've shown that
Hmm.
the links for that. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Amber.
Hmm.
And not to mention, they're not getting the vestibular input, the proprioceptive input that they need, to regulate their bodies. And so, of course, what we typically see is behaviors as the output, of a child that isn't regulated. So it aligns with the study as well.
And I
Yeah, and Amanda, I just wanted, because you were pointing out about vestibular um, input. Andreina, you were talking about kids visually stimulating. Can you give an example of what that might look like if they don't have a screen in front of them, but they're craving that visual stimming? Is that like kids who want to spin around in a circle? Is that kids who want to jump up and down? Like, what does that look like in real life?
Sure. Staring
so
at a spinning fan. Sorry.
It does. It's
to
everything that you
answer.
guys are saying. It's and a lot of the kids that I've helped their families just kind of like navigate through the what screen time can do to their autistic child or their child who's showing autistic symptoms, but they don't believe is autistic. And later on, they find out, oh, my child was not diagnosed autistic. We just took away the screens. But it is like you said, it's that we get a lot of hand flapping. A lot of the parents say that their child wants to flap their hands
Mhm.
in front of their face or kind of like looks at their fingers. It's switching the lights on and off, looking at fans, like you said, or line tracing or shadow tracing sometimes. It would be spinning in circles as well. It's a lot of the visual stimming that is craved. Um, and I think one thing that I do think is important to clarify is what exactly screen time is, because a lot of parents have that misconception that screen time is the amount of time that I'm giving my toddler a screen. But that's the wrong concept because
Mhm.
screen time is just easy way to think it, the amount of time your child has visual access to a screen. It doesn't matter if it's background TV, if mom or dad are scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, or if their child or if there's a like a parent's show or reality show or something on TV. That is screen time because the child
Mhm.
has access to it. And all of that time adds up throughout the day. If we think
Mhm.
about like so like and I did this too at first, but like breastfeeding and you're scrolling on your phone, that little 1 month old can see your phone. That's screen time. And if we
Yeah,
think
I'm
about how
experiencing that right now with my 5 month, my almost 5 month old. If I'm giving him a bottle and holding him in a way where I can like hold his head and hold the bottle, if I have to go through and look at emails or messages on my phone, that little stinker will follow that phone wherever I put it. He's trying to look at it and trying to see it. And I remember that with my daughter too, whenever I was feeding her initially, it was like, man, I really have to like be intentional about what I'm doing, be in the moment with these kiddos and like work on our bond and just enjoy having them here and put the phone away because I can see even at five, almost 5 months old that my son just he knows that that phone is something of importance and he sees the
yes.
screen and he follows it visually.
And then we tell ourselves, oh, I don't know, he was just born interested in it. But he wasn't. They're interested in
Right,
what
no.
we're interested in. Like, what is this thing that my mom holds the same amount of time that they hold me? Of course,
Yes.
they're going to wonder what it is, and of course, they're going to be attracted to it.
Hmm.
Exactly. That modeling that we're doing, what we're interested in, they're interested in. It's like I had a I had a mom who found a like a Chewy remote control because
Yes.
Hmm.
their toddler was that's the only thing that the toddler would do is they would just go and grab the remote control, and it's like you guys must watch a lot of TV because whoever's got control of that remote, the toddler picked that up and was like, that's what I want too. So yeah, no,
This is power.
yeah, exactly. Oh, if
Yeah.
I run around with
Or,
this, I'm going to get a lot of attention.
Hmm.
exactly. They're little sponges and they're just picking up what they see that we are interested in. I bet if I held just a rose in my hand every single day, my kid would love flowers.
Yeah,
That's such a good point.
good experiment. And Andreina,
Yeah.
can you? So there's another, I've seen another kind of thought pattern going on, and that is if you have to give your child screen time, show 'em TV shows from the 90s or earlier, the shows that the parents were probably exposed to, but kind of before all of this like really fast-paced, almost electronic spacing or time, the really popular shows that are on now where every 5 seconds or less there's something visual or a sound or something to kind of keep their attention. What do you have any has there been any research about doing that, or do you have any thoughts about that, or is that still considered screen time and still kind of like not a good idea?
Well, it definitely is still considered screen time, and I think that's the part that a lot of parents get confused. And it's really what I hear the most, where they tell me, but it's educational. But what makes it educational? Because the person who created it told you it's educational. And I always say it's like these YouTube teachers, because ideally that's a lot of what's happening now. People are seeing baby and toddler intended TV is skyrocketing. And that says a lot
Mhm.
about like this generation and how we heavily rely on screens, but any content that is highly stimulating, meaning like you said, it's changing fast. There's sound effects at the same time that something is happening, or there's music over someone talking, or there's changes. And I try to think of like an action movie for a toddler. If that's what your child is seeing, that is not good TV. That is not good content. And they shouldn't be getting any anyways until they're 18, 24 months of age, if you can really wait that long. But then
Hmm.
there's the softer content, which is considered the low stimulating. And I tell people, think of Franklin the Turtle, think of Clifford, and all these shows that even though they were cartoons, they showed realistic expectations of how socially someone would interact. Like you don't see Franklin the Turtle have like excessive tears. Like he shows like I'm sad and I'm a little hurt by this, and his body language is ideal to what a human's body language would be. And these shows back then had realistic expectations socially of how people would cry or react. And when it comes to screen time, there's also the difference of active screen time and passive. Passive is
Hmm.
everything our kids are getting now, and active would be interacting. And that's where people say, oh, well, does FaceTime count as screen time? It doesn't, because there's a live person interacting with you. And if you start to laugh, they're going to laugh. If you start to cry, they're going to comfort you. If they make a joke, you're going to laugh. That's interactive. That's active. That there's a reaction going on every time you're touching or interacting with that person. And with passive, as many times as little Johnny says the ball is red, if I'm showing you a blue ball on the screen, you're still going to be met with good job. So what am I learning? I'm learning that whatever I do, I'm always correct because I'm always getting a good job. There's no reciprocal interaction of this socialization.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm really glad that you brought up the point of like of FaceTime or like video chatting with real people. I like that you brought up that that's different. Because us being a military family, that's the only way that we can connect with our extended family. And so my daughter, I mean, every breakfast, we're calling my parents. Most evenings at dinner time, we're calling my husband's parents so that they can interact and use FaceTime to talk with the grandparents. And that's a really good point that they are getting real life stimulation and social examples because it is a real person. I mean, just like the Zoom call, we're all real people interacting with each other. So we're going to be able to pick up on the social cues of like, if Amanda is sad, she's going to cry. And we're going to be like, oh my gosh, let's pause the video because something's wrong and we need to fix it. Um, Amanda, please don't burst out in tears. But you absolutely can if you need to. We'll pause it. But it's a really good point because I think that a lot of times people will hear the debate about screens, and because we're such a drastic society right now, we're all or nothing, right?
Yep.
And so if people hear no screens, well then they're going to be like, that's completely ridiculous and unrealistic because like then I can't even call their grandparents, right? But that's not what we're saying.
And you make a good point because what I tell people often is if you're using screens to disconnect, that's when it's becoming a problem and it becomes dysregulation. But if you're using screens to connect, then that's able to help a child regulate, and you're using it as a social aspect. Like make yourself your child's influencer. If you really, really need to give them 10 minutes of screen time or just 30 minutes you need to cook, because I have done that. Put yourself on TV. Record yourself talking to your child because now they're hearing their name. They're not hearing
Hmm.
hi friend. It's hi name, hi my child. And that Google Gaga and interaction that they would be getting from their mother, they are seeing on the screen, yes, but I can understand if a parent needs it for their child to kind of be contained while they're cooking, because I've done that with my toddler. I've put myself on TV and had my toddler watch me because he loves to try to touch the stove. And I have an open
No.
concept in my house. And, just when they want something, they're going to try their hardest to get it. And at the
Oh,
end of the day,
mhm.
like we know a screen is kind of like zombification sometimes. And as many times as I told him no, he didn't stop until he, for some reason, saw me on the screen. And I played a video of myself talking to him.
Yeah, that's genius. I mean, you could take it one step further and purposefully record yourself reading stories. Or I know that there are these like story card readers we have, or like Tonys, I guess, or Yodo players.
I
Like we
love
have a
the
Yodo
Yodo.
player. Yeah, we love Yodo too. So we have the Yodo player with the little cards, and like if I need my daughter to have a moment to herself in her room whenever I'm doing something that like she loves to help, and sometimes her help is not help. God bless her. But I'll give her Yodo card, and like she'll go through and listen to stories, or we have some that are recorded by us, and she'll listen to our voice reading her a story. So those are like, I guess, good recommendations for alternatives, but recording yourself, like either telling a story or like doing like dancing to their favorite song or something, that's genius.
And it's helpful. And with, I just a little side note, the Tonys are a choking hazard. That's why we went with Yodo.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I
They're
knew
like
that
just little characters that you
because
put
they're
on.
little.
Yeah, so that's why we chose the
Yeah.
Yodo.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I ever would have thought of that. We chose the Yodo because they shipped overseas, and it
Um,
was just a good, like it was just a good alternative for us over time.
Okay, so what are you guys talking about with Yodo and Tony's?
And
child radio.
yeah, that's a good way to explain them. They're kind of like a child radio. The Yodo player has cards, whereas the Tony player has like figurine characters that you put on top. And it'll play music, it'll play stories. It just depends on what's programmed onto the card. And I don't know if Tony's work this way or not, but the Yodo cards come with make your own cards. And so you can download any type of audio file onto that card, and then that child can listen to it on their own personal child radio. So you can do like your own music files, you can record yourself reading stories, and as long as that's in an MP3, then you can download it onto the Yodo website and put it on a card, and then they have that for easy access. And we liked the Yodo too because it's just really easy for kids who are younger to be able to switch out cards. It doesn't take a lot of fine motor skills. All you need to do is have like the ability to pick up the card. They're like credit card sizes, and then put the card in the slot.
That's awesome. And I'm even thinking like applications could be like, parents or cousins or grandparents or so that
Mhm.
child can really have that personalization with their family.
I thought you
So
were finished.
just the other thing that I thought was brilliant is you were just sharing, creating your own video. So Amber, your thought about reading a story is great. I actually was even just imagining doing kind of like a Simon Says, making it really physical, and like
Yes.
and you do this and following
Yeah.
directions and then doing something silly yourself, right? So that you show like, whoops, I made a mistake, so that you're showing your child that you're not always doing the right thing either, and it's okay to have a laugh. Like there's a way. I love that intentionality of using the screens for that further connection because it's so true, right? Like you need time to do your laundry, make the food, clean, just so the house is, it doesn't need to be spotless, but just so that, you don't have syrup on the table or whatever. You need time to do all those things. And so
Right.
if your toddler is just insisting on the screens, that's a great way too to gently remove the screens, right? Because that's the other thing too. I kind of feel my heart goes out to the families when they have a child that's been on that has had screens, and then they become aware and they just automatically want to remove altogether. And whoa, man, I mean, Andreina, if you could even chat about the dopamine or the different responses that the brain gets. We all get that, right? Like we have our favorite TV shows that we're waiting for, oh, it comes on today, nobody call me. Do you have
Yeah,
any? Yeah.
yeah, I definitely have thoughts on that because I mean, as adults, we also get our own screen time. We have, like you said, our shows that we kind of wait for. But when it comes to like that whole dysregulation and regulation, in order to have that screen time, how do you know if your child is regulated or if your child is dysregulated with screens? And what I tell parents, because trust me, I've worked with parents that they say after like a week or two, like I can't do this. The tantrums are insane, and I get it. My child doesn't get screen time, so he doesn't have those tantrums. But I've worked with kids who do, and it's mentally and physically exhausting, and it's hard. So I get it. And just scientifically, the research says that those tantrums will last 2 to 3 weeks. After those
Mhm.
3 dreadful weeks, that's when the child is going to stop asking for it as much and start to sort of like change their habits to less screen time. But with the regulation, if the child is asking for the iPad to regulate, that's how you already know that that iPad is actually not regulating them. And then if we look at adults who use TV to kind of relax, like after you get home from work, that would be
Right.
considered regulation because
Hmm.
it's kind of like that. I just need like a 10-minute break. And after I sit down and watch TV for like 10, 15 minutes, or let me just watch one episode, then I'll be ready to join you. And then I'll be ready to cook or, I kind of just need this me time, right? That's regulation because it's using it to kind of like relax a little bit. And once you're done relaxing, you'll be able to join in these social aspects. That's when you know it's regulation. But if it's being used to kind of remove yourself or to zone out or to hyperfixate, and if that tablet is removed after you used it and there's a meltdown or there's irritability or hyperactivity or you can't focus or you feel disconnected, that's when you know it's dysregulation of screen time.
It's a great explanation. Um, can you talk a little bit about, and maybe this is research based and maybe it's not. I'm not sure. I'm just speaking from my own experience. Um, we have noticed, both my husband and I, that with our kiddo, because our kiddo is 2.5, and she has, when we moved from Germany to back to the States and then welcomed our second kiddo into the world, screens kind of did get a little out of hand. But what we were noticing was that she was so much more interactive and much more like well behaved, I would say, whenever we were using the TV for screen time as compared to like a personal screen such as the iPad or a phone. Is there anything that you've read or anything that you know of about like the transition between those types of screens, or if the effects are worse whenever it's a personal screen compared to like a bigger, more family style screen?
Yeah, so with the TV, it stays on the wall, first of all. And it's far away enough that if a parent is in the room, like the child is still able to see what's going on around them. So if the TV is
Hmm.
on the wall and, I trip over or I cross in front of the TV, the child knows that I'm there. But when it comes to a phone, when it's so close to your face, you
Hmm.
can't see around you. So it becomes, instead of being able to socially see what's going on around you, you no longer can see what's going on around you when the phone is so close to your face. And it's that aspect that the TV stays on the wall. I
Hmm.
know that if I get screen time on my tablet, we can take that to Target. We can take that to the restaurant. So if I know that it's going to stay on the wall, I'm going to behave better around it because that's where it's going to stay. I have to be able to use it in this moment right now because this is when I have access to it. Whereas if you give it on the tablet, not only is it terrible for vision, but now I know that if we're going to go out, I am able to have it. So why are you limiting me from something that I know that I can take with me?
Hmm. It's a
And
great
you might
point.
be you're using the tablet too, or the phone as well. And so you're modeling for your child, oh, hey, I'm out and about and I'm doing this as well. There's a there was a little cartoon I remember seeing a few years back, and it was a mother sitting on a bench with her child, and the mother was reading a book, and the child was reading a book. And there was another mother sitting on the bench with her child, same bench, the mothers were next to each other, and the mother is looking at her phone, and the child is looking at the tablet, and the mother with the phone turns to the other mom. She's like, how are you getting your child to read a book? You know? And I just thought that was just such a visually
Mhm.
like impactful. Yeah, you're modeling, and you said this earlier, Andrina, that you're modeling all the time, which is a lot of pressure. So I do want to just say that, like, as parents, yes, please give yourself breaks because that's a lot of pressure to know like you're being observed and monitored all day long. But with that does come a responsibility.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think
For
it is
sure.
very hard. Like you say, I feel like in this generation, there's very little community support, at least within what I see with friends or just talking to my friends and other moms where I always hear that I feel so alone. And I
Hmm.
get it because when I had my two kids, I also felt very alone. And I think we try to build that community with talking through others on social media. And I think that that's why there's so many like mom accounts of just like mom bloggers because we're building that community. But then that needs to stay within our working time because we are we are socially distancing ourselves from our children if we are giving them the screen time. And I know it's going to be a terrible, terrible comparison to say, but it's the only way that I feel is understanding of the point that I'm trying to make. But you know how in the 80s, there was like this big advertising of Valium that moms would take, and they would advertise it in magazines like, take Valium so mom can continue her chores and mom can feel relaxed. Don't worry about like the kids, like take your Valium. And I feel that we've gone from drugging like the mothers drugging ourselves with this Valium to, oh, well, that's not good for us. So now we're going to use the screens because the screens are
Mm,
telling me it's educational. And we went from kind of numbing ourselves to the chaos of motherhood to numbing our children, unfortunately. But we're not doing it intentionally because I don't think most parents know how damaging screen time can be. And that's the difference because obviously we do the best thing that we want for our kids. We're always doing what we think is the one thing that's best and that's going to get them forward in life. There's, and I really think it has to do with like the testing culture we have right now. You always have to test, you always have to get ahead. And I think that's
hmm.
why we're showing these contents of learn your numbers, learn your colors, learn your letters at like 0 years old. The kid's 2 months
Right.
old. They're already watching how to learn their colors and how to learn their ABCs. They're 0 months old. They're not going to learn that right now. Like, teach them something else. And especially with autistic children, parents tell me all the time, oh, well, he learned all his colors and he learned all his numbers. But does he know what they mean? Does he know that the number three is three objects, or is he just saying one, two, three because he hears it often? And I always tell them, like, I understand that you're going to continue using screen time, but at least change it to healthy screen time. Don't play nursery rhymes, play video modeling so the child can learn how to interact in a social environment or learn skills. There's so many great video modeling videos on YouTube, and they usually have like 1,000 views. But then we go and see like Coco Melon or the Dancing Veggies, and it's like 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion views, and
Yeah.
it's insane because those shows are so.
Right.
And you know,
Right, yeah, and it's always one of those like parents are always like, "Oh, well, I play it for them because they love it." And like of course we want the best for our children. I mean, only like parents only want the best for their children. And I would never say that to anybody like anybody else like, "Oh, you're purposely harming your child." I don't think that that's what's happening here, right? But whenever I hear parents say like, yeah, we do turn on Cocomelon or we do turn on the dancing fruit because like they just lock in and they just love it. And I struggle at that point because how do I kindly educate parents to say, to know that like, well, do they love it? Or are they so overwhelmed with what they're seeing that their little tiny brains can't comprehend what they're seeing? And so everything is just so overwhelmed and so overstimulated and so dysregulated that they just shut down and stare with their eyes open.
or Amber, is it more of that addictive, right? Is that dopamine because of
Hmm.
all those bright visuals and the sounds and everything that's getting them actually, it's supporting what they're wanting to hear. I think both are true. And that's what we come down to, right? Is the fact that, all of so many things these days, because it's all, available on Dr. Google, we take information and we like to apply it generally because that's how, I mean, honestly, when our brains are stressed, and I think modern day people, our brains are stressed. We're just constantly bombarded with the stresses of life, with the news, with the this, with all the drama, right? When our brains are stressed, we have a tendency to be black and white because that's easy. Yes, no. I mean, think of
Hmm.
computer programming even, right? It's zero and one, zero and one. Like there is no gray. And it takes us the ability to calm our own amygdala, right? To flip back our brain so that we haven't flipped our lid, but we're able to think with our cortex to finally look at the grays and to apply it. So, Andrina, you've been coaching parents regarding, the effects of screen time and things that they can do. Do you have, like, if this resonates with you, here's
Like top 3 or 5 tips on removing screen time or
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like what you would suggest. Like if like let's say somebody just calls you up and says, Andrina, I need help. I have 5 minutes. Can you just tell me what to do?
definitely that's the top 5 things I would say is if your child is already one of those children that is addicted to the screen, Yes, taking it off cold turkey is going to be difficult for you as a parent. And if you know that you as a parent cannot handle that, one, it's completely understandable because it is going to be a 180 change. But if you know that it's going to overstimulate you as a parent, then switch the content from high stimulating content to low stimulating content. And there's this website called tvtantrum.com that they have excellent list of
Hmm.
what shows are highly stimulating and which ones are low stimulating. So that would be my first tip. Change the content and you'll see changes. The second one would be family rules across the board. If you have to write them down, print them, post them on the house, have those family rules, especially if your children are of an age that they can understand those family rules. And when you're saying those family rules, explain why. A lot of the times, parents won't say why, or they'll say it's because it's for your own good. But children are curious little beings and they're going to want to know why. So tell them why.
Hmm.
If your child likes science, go into the science of the brain if you have to. Ask ChatGPT to explain it to a kindergarten kid, and you'll be able to find ways to really creatively explain to your kid why it is that they can't have screen time. And then my third one would be track their personality and track their symptoms. And I know it sounds really weird to say that, but it's the one thing that I started saying to the newer parents that I kind of provided information to that I saw worked. At first, I would kind of just give them all the information. Oh, we'll be on your day. Let me know how it goes. But I realized they didn't have a system of tracking. And so what I then started telling them is, well, one, if your child is showing autistic symptoms after you introduced screen time, then start off with a baseline of what those symptoms are. There's the autism treatment evaluation checklist that they can use. And that you have your baseline. Remove the screens, and then in a month, track the symptoms again. If they're diminishing, then I feel like it's safe to say screen time was affecting their symptoms. But then for other parents, I say, well, what are the 4 things or 5 things that are bothering you the most? Oh, well, he's not eating unless he gets a tablet. He's not taking a bath unless he gets a tablet. He's not going to sleep unless he gets a tablet. So if all those things are happening and those are your major concerns, write those down. And then in a month, see if the child's symptoms, I guess, have changed. And that's a very good way of visually with data seeing the changes because a lot of times as parents we kind of just want that change to happen right away. So if it's not happening right
Hmm.
away, I don't see it working. But once you start seeing the numbers, you're like, "Oh, it's very mildly happening, but we're getting there."
That's brilliant. No, I love
Yeah, that's
that
a great
idea.
idea.
I love that using that checklist kind of as like a baseline, right? So that you're doing your kind of own study, right? And because I think that's so true, in the work that Amber and I do, you often, because we're only showing up, for the sessions, we'll see changes. And the
Mhm.
parent that's there every day is like, I don't see it. I'm like, well, last time we met, look at all the things that have happened since then. And then it's like, oh,
Hmm.
I hadn't tracked that. So I love that idea of using that as a baseline tracker.
And it's true. And I actually learned that from my son's speech therapist because she asked me, oh, how many words does he know? And I'm like, I don't feel like he knows any. And she would tell me, what do you mean? He talks all the time with me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He doesn't talk in our house. And she then sort of explained to me the things that as a parent, I'm like, well, I don't count that as a word. But it is a word because in his language of toddlerhood, that is the way they build language. But for to me, well, that doesn't sound like a word, so it's not a word. But she's like, no, it's his word. So he's telling you what it is. If he keeps saying the same grunt or the same gesture, that's language.
That's his
And it took a
communication.
lot for me to realize, okay, so then when I had that in mind, that's when I started seeing, oh, wow, he does talk. He has a vocabulary. And just now he's actually talking with the words that I understand. But it took that click for me to understand, oh, let me write these things down so that now I know his vocabulary is building. And I did. She made me write a list of every new word that I heard. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at his little language. He does have one.
That's awesome. Okay. Well,
Very cool.
yeah, go ahead, Amber.
No, no, I was just going to ask if there was anything else that, if there's any last little nuggets that you would like to share before we sign off, because I know we've had you for a little over an hour now.
I don't even
So
notice.
if
I could talk
you
about this all day.
I know Rachel and I are like that too. We will go on and on and on, and then the next thing we know, it's been like an hour and a half, and we say, shoot, we have other things to do today. But if you, all in all, I mean, this is all really great information. And not only have you provided us with information, but I think that you've also provided us and the viewers with some really practical tips on like what we're looking for whenever we're talking about addiction or dysregulation during screen time for kiddos, but you've also given us ways to kind of work through it and to kind of help fix it. Not fix it, but to help to like diminish screen time and given ideas on how to diminish it and like what to do instead of it too. So do you have any like last parting statements or any like little gold nuggets of information that you want to share, or have you really feel do you really feel like you've kind of covered at least the generalization of your area of expertise?
I've covered the gist of it, but I think my last tidbit would be we don't like people telling us parenting advice. Like, let's be real. We don't like it when another mom is coming up to us and telling us, oh, this is what you should do. And we're never going to because that's who we are as humans. So I think the best advice
Mhm.
I would give would be inform yourself. If you don't want to take my word for it, if you don't want to listen to somebody else tell you screens are bad for your kid, look it up yourself. Go on Google
Mm.
Scholar and search screen time symptoms or screen time developmental outcomes. That's a great one, actually. And you will see all of the studies. So many studies just telling you how bad screen time is. And for the parents that say, well, my child needs it, that's how they regulate. Look up screen time and autism symptoms. There's many studies that tell you that it is not beneficial for autistic children, whether or not their symptoms are related to screens or not. It actually is
Mm.
removing abilities that they would have had the screen not be introduced. And I think that the best way to go about it is to really just inform yourself because you're at the end of the day not going to believe anybody but yourself. And you're not going to believe it until you see it within your own family or until you experience it. And if that does happen, then talk to other people about it because 0 to 3 should really be just screen free, and it's not common knowledge anymore.
Yeah, I think that that's great information. And Rachel, too, whenever we publish this, we can even include some links or some citations to a couple of those really good, really solid studies so that our viewers can take a look in the description portion of the video and like dive into the information yourselves because that's a big passion of mine is educating families and educating parents because you don't know what you don't know, right? And I mean, you said it, it's not common knowledge that kids under 3 really shouldn't have any screen time at all. Um, and I'm not saying that as a parent who has zero screen time for my child because that's just not the time of life that we're currently in, right? Like we have family movie nights once a week, and that's usually the screens that she gets. But we do try to limit it like as much as we can because I know the information, I know the research and the data that's out there, and we really just try to use screens more as a tool for parenting as compared to like a pacifier for our children.
The only thing else that I was going to just share about that is I also really love the idea of we don't like advice, so find out the information for yourself. And then the other thing that I took away is just what you were saying, Amber. You know, you have a family movie night. That also brings great memories, right? Like that's been something that's been in the culture since TV was invented, right? So
That's social screen time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're bonding with it. And then you talk about the movie, or, maybe that will spawn wanting to, read that book or something like that together. And so that's exactly true, is that you can take that little piece and expand it to things that you're doing throughout the day, not just the child watching something that you have no idea what they're watching.
Exactly. And I really the last tidbit would be that we don't like taking parenting advice from other people, but we take marketing advice.
Uh-huh.
And what I mean by that is if we look through everything that has been marketed to parents, because that's who's going to give these things, it's that's been marketed through time. We started off with the things that obviously weren't good, like cough syrup and cocaine for kids to go to sleep, to soothe their teeth. Then we found out it wasn't good. Then marketing shifted towards toys. And we had so many toys, and the income of companies came from toys. But then we go to this digital age, and the marketing is educational videos, and Toys R Us closes down. And now what happens with videos is they're longer and longer and longer, and they hook your child more and more because they're getting their money from the views. They're no longer getting money from
Hmm.
toys to the point that you go to stores and there's barely any kids' toys. There's like two aisles maybe. And yes,
Hmm.
maybe kids don't need that many toys. They need to be outside. But instead of doing that, we're being marketed that it's educational content. And that's why I don't blame the parents because they don't know. It's not common knowledge that that's not educational.
Well, and to your point too, that I mean, this is another platform that I always take is that, this the one, two, threes, shapes and letters, and numbers is you go to the child's section and that's what you have. And so you think, oh, my child needs to
Hmm.
know their numbers and they need to know their colors and here here's the all of these things that are academic.
Hmm.
I think the parents will feel like you're saying, they're listening to the marketers. If you talk to anybody that's in early intervention or a provider that's in early intervention, we're like, no, 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 functional language first, or lead with what the child loves, right? So there are kids, it, I have a suspicion or a theory, my own personal, so it's not something that I've read, but I feel like a lot of times children that show autistic traits, their amygdalas are like hyper alert, right? So they're kind of in that fight, flight, freeze more often than a typical child. Their window of tolerance is a little bit more shallow. And so things that don't change, colors, numbers, letters, are comforting. And so they're attracted to those
Hmm.
things because it helps their brains just feel more regulated because a number one looks like number one no matter what.
Yep. That's a very good point, actually. And you're not wrong. The kids do like
Yeah.
predictability, and it does come with those numbers, but they're gonna have their whole life to learn numbers and colors, and they're going to learn their ABCs. It's not like it's not going to happen. It just doesn't need to happen at 2 years old, at 1 year old, at 3 years old, because the rest of
Right.
their life, they're gonna spend up until 18 years old at school. 0 to 3, they need to learn how to socialize, they need to learn how to understand their parents, and they need to build that bond. And it's something that in this fast-paced academics type of mentality that we have, we're forgetting about. We want our kids to be so ahead that we're forgetting they need to build those social connections with not only just ourselves, but with the rest of the world.
Emotional intelligence, right? That's the
That's
thing that we
emotional
need to.
intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah,
This has been so
definitely. And that zero, the foundation of movement is built at that 0 to 3 age too. So we need to get them moving, take them to a playground,
Yes.
buy the really cool like wooden inside toys like the ladders and the slides and the rockers, all of those things are great things. And that would be, I think that this is a really good place to kind of wrap up, I think. But if we were to do like a part two, I think it would be really fun for us to have a conversation about um, academia and children's screen time and like when it is appropriate to kind of start introducing more educational content, and like what we can do with the 0 to 3 aged kiddos in replacement of what's considered these like educational programs or screens or shows.
And Amber, just to put a pin in that, I agree because in my experience in working with families, sometimes, if a mom or, the parent was in childcare, right? Because their parents were working, they didn't develop their parents didn't show them how to play, didn't show them how to use, songs with finger play or motions. They don't know. And so there we go. So I love that idea of, okay, you want to try to remove screen time? Here's some ideas that we can work on or that you guys can work on to replace that time. I love it. Okay.
And I love that too. Yeah. People forget to replace the screen time with something else. You can't just take an addiction away without replacing it with something that's going to occupy your mind.
Right.
Love that.
Right, exactly. Right. So let's take away the screen that's doing the parenting for you. They're watching people on a screen that are singing songs to them, showing them different movements. Let's be let's who was it? Somebody recently had said to me, like, why don't you as a parent be your child's like Miss Insert name here?
Be
Right?
your kid's
Because like
influencer.
yeah, be right, exactly. Be your kid's influencer, be your kid's teacher, be your kid's like sing-songy fun, um, like person to go to and to interact with. Don't just put somebody on YouTube who's going to sing to them, who's going to show them those motions. Like engage with them without that. They don't care how you sound. Like I'm a terrible singer, but my daughter still loves to like sing and dance with me, right? So I think that that would be a really great resource to add to the YouTube channel, as well as to just like be able to share with parents because, you're totally right. We have to, if we're going to remove something, we need to replace it with something that's more positive, more interacting, and like more beneficial for kids.
And bonding. Love it. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Andreina. This has been so just not only eye-opening, because Amber and I've had conversations offline before about just what screen time does, but I love the information you gave us and the options to go beyond that. So thank you so, so much
Thank
for joining
you.
us today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.